In 2002, two psychologists identified a cluster of personality traits that appeared together more often than they should. They named it the Dark Triad. Three traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. Each one distinct, each one dangerous in its own way, and each one, research consistently shows, linked to professional success. That last part is the uncomfortable finding most people skip over. Psychologists Delroy Paulhus and Kevin Williams were the first to formally define the cluster. They found that while the three traits are not identical, they share a common core: callous social manipulation, the willingness to treat other people as instruments rather than as ends in themselves. That is what ties the three together underneath their differences. Start with narcissism. Most people think of narcissism as vanity, an obsession with appearance or status. The clinical picture is more precise than that. Narcissism is characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, an excessive need for admiration, and a structural inability to genuinely consider other people's inner lives. It is not that narcissists dislike other people. It is that other people do not fully register as real to them in the way the narcissist registers as real to themselves. Research consistently finds that narcissism predicts leadership emergence, not leadership effectiveness, leadership emergence. Narcissists get to the top more often than their actual competence warrants, because confidence reads as competence to human brains that were not designed to evaluate the difference. In a job interview, in a boardroom, in a first impression, the person who believes most deeply in their own superiority tends to project it in ways that others interpret as capability. The second trait is Machiavellianism. Named after Niccolo Machiavelli, the 16th century political theorist who argued that power justifies any means used to obtain it. In psychological terms, Machiavellianism describes a cold, strategic, long-term orientation toward manipulation. The Machiavellian does not act on impulse. They plan, they calculate, they identify what each person in a room wants and use that knowledge as leverage. They are not angry or impulsive. They are patient and precise. Research finds that Machiavellianism is associated with success in competitive negotiation and political maneuvering. Machiavellians tend to rise in organizations that reward political savvy over technical skill. They are effective in the short term. Over time, colleagues learn to expect manipulation and trust collapses around them. But by then, the Machiavellian has often already moved on to the next position. The third trait is psychopathy. And this is where the research becomes genuinely counterintuitive. Most people picture a psychopath as violent, impulsive, unable to function in normal society. Researchers distinguish between two forms. Secondary psychopathy is characterized by hostility, impulsivity, and antisocial behavior. This is the version most people picture. Primary psychopathy is something different. Fearlessness, emotional flatness under pressure, social dominance, the ability to make high-stakes decisions without the interference of anxiety or guilt. Primary psychopathy has been linked to effective performance in crisis contexts. Surgeons, emergency responders, combat soldiers, and, consistently, corporate executives. A study examining senior leadership found Dark Triad traits overrepresented at the top of organizations. Not because these traits make people better leaders, because they make people better climbers. The combination of narcissistic confidence, Machiavellian strategy, and psychopathic fearlessness creates a personality that advances quickly in competitive environments. Cultures that mistake confidence for competence and social dominance for leadership effectiveness create exactly the conditions these traits are built for. Here is what makes this more unsettling than it first appears. These are not rare pathological conditions found only in prisons and criminal profiles. They are dimensional traits. Every person has some level of each. The Dark Triad describes the far end of a spectrum that runs through ordinary human personality. You have encountered these people in a management chain, in a family, in a relationship. The person who always seemed to come out ahead, who was charming at first and corrosive over time, who never seemed to feel the weight of what they did to other people. That is not just a character judgment. That is a documented psychological profile with a name and 40 years of research behind it. And here is the final detail that research keeps returning to. These traits persist in the gene pool because they work. Not in every environment, not in every relationship, but in enough contexts, often enough, that natural selection has not eliminated them, which means they are in every population, in every culture, at every level of society. The question is not whether you have encountered the Dark Triad. The question is whether you recognized it when you did.